Joining us today for our seminar on the importance of combining nutrition with exercise. I will be speaking. I'm Tyler Wood. This is Hans Streckenbach, and this is Tracy Siegel, our guest speaker, who is a nutritionist. All right, before we get things going, allow me to tell those of you who are visiting us for the first time a little bit about who we are and what we do here. Muscles in Motion has been serving people looking for a safe, efficient, and effective way to reach their personal health goals for going on 10 years now. Our one-on-one 30-minute strength training sessions bring a unique personal approach to fitness. Every Muscles in Motion trainer has completed an internship as a strength trainer and either hold no fewer than 2 accredited certifications or has completed comprehensive coursework in the field of personal training from an accredited college. Each staff member here has committed to a set of core values, which are considered to be our essential and enduring tenets, which we strive to practice every day. Those values include being service-minded, being education leaders, improving the lives of those we meet, and cultivating authentic relationships. From living these values each day, we are able to pride ourselves on our ability to meet people when they or where they are and when they join us, and guide them to where they want to go with their fitness goals, whatever that may be. In this year alone so far, we've had over 4,400 successful strength training sessions, and our clients have reported back results including improvement on their golf game, improvement in physical therapy performance, running their first 5K, measurably standing taller due to better posture, increasing lean muscle tissue, and doing things with more ease, like being able to kneel down and play with their kids or grandkids. We are looking forward to continuing to be service to people in our community in the field of personal health through the years here. Part of that includes seminars like these, which brings me to our topic, nutrition and fitness, or the importance of combining exercise with nutrition. Now I'm going to hand it over to Tracy Siegel.
Okay.
She's going to go a little bit more in depth.
Hi guys.
Hi, Tracy.
I'm so excited to be here with you guys. So thank you so much for coming in on this beautiful Saturday afternoon. Kind of my specialty and my practice is I really help clients learn about their bodies, because part of the things that we're not that good at is making the association between pain, inflammation, and what we're putting into our bodies, you know, and so really kind of understanding that what we eat, what we drink really does have an impact on how we feel. When you go to the doctor and you have a symptom, the doctor has more of a tendency to write you a prescription as opposed to say, let's talk about what you're eating. Let's talk about what you're drinking. Let's talk about how you're moving your body. There's not a lot of conversations about that. It's more about disease management. So my practice is more about disease prevention. You know, how do we focus on improving our lives through diet, exercise, supplementation as needed? But part of the conversation is, how's your digestion? So you can have the most dialed in, amazing diet in the world, but if you're not properly digesting your food and assimilating the nutrients, then you're getting very little, or you're not getting the health benefits that you could. So part of the practice is also looking at how you're digesting. So do you have a lot of pain, bloating, gas, indigestion, heartburn? Those are all symptoms that shouldn't be masked. That's our body's way of telling us that something's amiss. Something is not working as efficiently as it should be. And so in lieu of masking it, what we need to be doing is asking our body, what is going on? So that is where you start healing the gut. Does anyone have any idea how much of your immune system resides in your gut?
75?
70 to 80%. So if we do not have a properly functioning gut, we're not going to have a properly functioning immune system, which makes us more prone to disease, which makes us feel lethargic and tired and not as well and not as vibrant as we could. So some of the easy things we can do are, there's some great digestive aids, but it's also understanding, are we eating foods that are inflammatory? Do you have a diet that is highly refined and highly processed, right? Do you eat a lot of food that comes in a box? If you do, it's possible that some of those symptoms are coming from a highly refined diet. Sugar, lots of sugar. We talk a lot about sugar. Over the years, it's kind of been drilled into us that fat was our enemy. Fat's gonna give you a heart attack. Fat's gonna make you fat. Fat is going to do all these things. But really what we're finding is sugar is kind of the culprit. So reducing the amount of sugar that we have in our diet really does help us feel better. We love it. A lot of us crave it because we eat a lot of it, and the more you crave, the more you eat, the more you eat, the more you crave. So it's kind of a vicious cycle. So if you're able to develop a really well-balanced diet, you tend to crave less sugar. So if you wake up in the morning, how many of you have been, eat breakfast? I remember, I hate breakfast. I used to drink like a pot of coffee for breakfast. That was what I would have for breakfast. That was in my early 20s. I don't do that anymore. So now breakfast is literally one of my biggest meals. So start the day with good proteins, good fats, and good carbohydrates. When I say carbohydrates, what do you think I mean? Do you know the difference between, there's two umbrellas that fall under carbohydrates. What are they? Do you know?
Vegetables.
Simple and complex, no?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So your complex are going to be those that come in the form of fruits and vegetables, okay? And then you have the ones that are the refined or the simple, which are kind of how we're conditioned to think about carbohydrates. Breads, crackers, cookies. You know, when you say carbohydrates, that's kind of automatically what we jump to. But in my line of work, when I talk about carbohydrates are those amazing fruits and vegetables. And the more color, the better they are for you. And they're full of antioxidants, and they get rid of a lot of free radicals, and they really do have a tremendous amount of health benefits. So one of the first things I recommend is having a really good breakfast. Most of you come in here and you work out. Getting a good breakfast is going to be not only the way to kind of set the rest of your day, because what you eat in the morning kind of sets the whole tone for your entire day. If you don't eat in the morning and you come here and you want to work out, you are not energetically going to have what you need to perform. So it's kind of like buying a new car. Buy a new car, never change the oil. Never, ever, ever change the oil. Your car is not going to run very well if you don't do that, right? It's the same thing with our bodies. Our bodies are machines. We kind of have to think about it that way, about putting the necessary fuel in our bodies to achieve the results that we want to achieve, right? So in order to do that, and I know Hans is going to talk about that too, but in order to do that, it's really kind of identifying for each individual. We are our own individual. That's why I don't believe in diets. I don't believe in diets because I don't think diets work. Diets want to put you in a box, and diets want you to say, you, and you. I want you to all eat the same thing. You are all going to have different results because metabolically you are all designed differently. So that's the importance of really kind of looking at each individual and developing a diet or a nutritional plan that is unique to each one of you, because it's kind of as unique as each one of your thumbprints or your fingerprints. It's your identity. It's how your body works. It's bio-individuality. So developing the same plan for each of you isn't really going to work. So it's understanding how your bodies work on a metabolic level. And that's where the macro ratios will differ between each client. So you start with a baseline and you build from there. What are the macronutrients? Does anybody know? When I talk about macronutrients, what are the three? Fats, proteins, carbohydrates. Carbohydrates in the form, again, of complex carbohydrates. When I say carbohydrates, I'm always talking about the complex. You know, even though bread is amazing and we love birthday cake and cookies and in moderation, we should have those things. Unless, of course, it triggers something in you, then that's a different conversation. But, you know, really what you want to do is stay within those guidelines. You want to have a good source of saturated fats and omega-3s and oils. So did anyone here see the article that the American Heart Association released that said coconut oil is bad for you? How many believe that? Okay, so coconut oil is a really amazing saturated fat. Now, the caveat is some people do have an inflammatory response to coconut oil and to coconut. If you have an allergy or an intolerance to coconut, you're going to have an inflammatory response to it. Don't eat it. But for the rest of the population, most people do really, really well on organic coconut oil. The problem is when these types of things come out, people get really nervous, it makes them edgy, they don't want to eat it anymore. But what they're not telling you is that the study was funded by the canola oil industry. So the ultimate irony, the canola oil industry also funds the American Heart Association. So there's kind of a lot of collusion behind the scenes that none of us are aware of. So don't always believe everything that you read, and trust what your body is telling you. If you start to feel better, then something is working right for you, okay? So getting the right amount of fats, the right amount of proteins, and the right amount of complex carbohydrates in your diet. That's the ultimate goal from a nutritional perspective, is developing a diet that creates that for you. And sustainability. That's the other thing that I don't love about diets, is that one, it wants to put you in a box. Two, it's really hard to take that and create a lifestyle out of that. So most of my work with my clients is creating sustainable, lifelong changes. What does that look like? So typically it starts very slow, because this can be a little overwhelming for people to make a lot of changes. So I don't believe in making big changes really quickly. We make small changes. Drink more water. The health benefits of water are insane. The list is huge. And people are chronically dehydrated. We have access to water in every direction here, and the United States is chronically dehydrated. So kind of a rule of thumb is each of you want to drink about 50% of your body weight in ounces per day. Everyone's like, what? So your body will adjust, and you will feel better. I had a client that just came in to see me. She's like, I don't have any energy. She's 19, mind you. I have no energy. I'm really tired. Living on sugar and not drinking 1 glass of water a day. Not one. Except maybe she was drinking maybe 8 ounces. Okay? I said, I gave her some very small recommendations. Let's just start with this and see how you feel. She called me yesterday. I feel amazing. I gave her like a 6-page write-up of things that I thought she could change. One of them was just drink water. It was huge. So, that is one of the biggest things that you can do, is just drink water. But the other things are, it is important. It is important to source where your food is coming from. Know where it's coming from. Eat grass-fed beef if you eat beef at all. Eat pasture-raised, cage-free chicken and eggs. Only buy wild-caught fish. The omega-3 fatty acids and the health benefits of fish are huge. But do wild-caught. Farmed has a tendency to be full of things you don't want in your body. So just stay away from farmed fish. Because our exposure to toxins and pesticides far exceeds what we are aware of. I just did a report last month on it. The average person consumes 16 pounds of pesticides per year that are FDA approved. So we are the sickest we've ever been. We have the access to the best medical care, yet we have all of these diseases. There is a reason for all of that. So be mindful of what you're putting in your body and be aware of where it's coming from. If you're on a fixed budget, then make choices accordingly. If you can only afford certain organic products, buy the ones that are going to give you the most benefit. When it comes to fruits and vegetables, if it has a harder shell on it, it is more protected. It has a less likelihood of having pesticides and herbicides in it. Strawberries, apples, the things that you eat, the skin, buy organic whenever you can. Reduce your exposure as much as possible, because those do have inflammatory responses in the body. They've done studies where overexposure to certain pesticides increase the estrogen in the body, which leads to a host of problems, including cancer. So, if you are able to buy organic all the time, and if you're not able to buy organic all the time, be mindful of when you are and make those choices. So when it comes to, your fats, so going back to that, I love fats. So they've been given such a bad name, and they're so critical to health. Your brain is 60% fat. So if you are not putting fat in your body from a cellular level out, you are not going to function as optimally as you can. So the other thing is from an energetic perspective. So think of building a fire. When you build a fire, you build it with the kindling, right? So that's how you get it started. But from a sustainable, long-burning perspective, you do those big, huge pieces of wood, right? That's what has your fire burn all night long. Think of that in your body. That is the equivalent of fats in your body. So the kindling is going to be those quick sources of energy that your body's going to blow through. Those are going to be the glucose, those high sugary things that you're going to eat and your body's going to use, and then it's going to be gone. Or it's going to be floating around in your bloodstream because you have metabolic disorder and your body's not working. So, but the fat is going to keep you sustained. It's going to keep you satiated. You're not going to be as hungry as frequently if you eat more fat. Now I'm not telling you to go out and go absolutely crazy and eat a ton of fat. That's not what I mean. But if you increase the amount of good quality fats in your diet, you will tend to eat less because you'll be more satiated. So you have an egg in the morning or two, cook it in a little bit of Kerrygold butter, eat some really well-sourced chicken apple sausage and a little bit of fruit, like something like that. That is a brilliant breakfast. If you are not able to eat eggs or you're dairy-free, there's some really lovely hashes you can make that have sweet potato and other vegetables cooked in a little bit of avocado oil. On a personal level, I don't cook in olive oil. Olive oil, in my opinion, is something that should be eaten in its pure press cold form, right? So I typically cook with either coconut oil or I cook with avocado oil. You can go to Costco and buy a bottle that big for $8.79. Everywhere else, the price point's ridiculous, but it's great and it's awesome to cook with. It doesn't have an avocado taste, but it does tend to make your food a little bit richer, and it does have a really good fat return on it too. So you don't need a lot. So those are the things that these little tweaks in your diet can have huge impacts, not only from a performance perspective, but from an overall health perspective. Again, we're looking to achieve certain results. How do we get there? We get there by feeding our bodies, by fueling our bodies. We kind of have gotten a little away from what food really is. Food's how we celebrate. Food's what we do if we feel lonely. Food is what we do if we're bored. Eating, and so we've kind of gotten away from thinking about food as fuel for our bodies. So I think if we start to develop that mindfulness around it, that again will also help us achieve the results that we want. But it's being aware. And when it comes to mindfulness about those symptoms. When you eat something, do you feel bloated? Did you get a headache? Did you feel tired? Did you feel fatigued? It's developing that mind-body relationship and awareness that is also going to help move you in the direction that you want to go. It's big and it's complicated and there's so much information out there, but if you can parse it down and kind of start putting it in more simplistic terms, it makes it easier and more manageable. So that's why I believe in making slow, methodical changes over a period of time, because your level of success and your ability to create sustainable changes for the long term is huge. So, 5 more minutes. So those are the things that those are the things that are most important, I think, is really developing the most appropriate macronutrient ratios and really eliminating the sugars. Does anyone have any idea how much the average American consumes in sugar per year? How much? 180 pounds per person. That's per person. 180 pounds.
It's a little more than 7 25-pound bags.
Yes. So when the Industrial Revolution was first introduced, it was 10 pounds. The average American consumed 10 pounds. Because they use sugar as a stabilizer. I don't know if any of you, do you read food labels, like when you go?
Yeah.
Okay. So sugar is a cheap stabilizer. So it's literally in everything. literally. I went to go and buy organic beef stock and there was sugar in it. It's nominal, so it's not gonna have a big metabolic or a big insulin response in the body, but it's still sugar nonetheless. And so, but when you start talking to people about the amount of sugars that are hidden and the amount of sugars that they're actually consuming, 180 pounds is an insane amount per person per year. That's not even a lifetime. That's a year. So be aware, look at labels. If something has more than 5 grams of sugar per serving, then that's about what you want to do. 5 grams per serving is where you want to be. If it's above that, be aware of the kind of sugar. Like we talked about earlier, sugar from dates, you're actually going to get a lot of sugar from dates, but dates have so much fiber in them that it modifies how the body responds to it. So you don't have that instant surge. It enters the body and the bloodstream a little bit more slowly. And so, but you know, nonetheless, I don't really recommend Lara bars because there's 24 grams of sugar in one Lara bar. That's a lot of sugar. Does anyone go and get Frappuccinos from Starbucks?
Not anymore.
Okay, good. 67 grams of sugar. 67 grams of sugar in the new Frappuccino, one of the new ones, the S'mores Frappuccino that they just
the
released.
unicorn one too.
The unicorn is 67 and full of dyes and a bunch of other things, but that's a whole other conversation. So again, be aware of what you're putting in your body. Be mindful of what you're putting in your body. If you want to achieve results, what else do you need to do besides work out? Again, going back to the analogy, you can't have expectations of your body to work the way you want it to if you're not giving it the fuel that it needs. So with that in mind, I did bring some samples of some food that I make. These are my energy bites. So these have almond butter, a little bit of butter. They've got a lot of omega-3 fatty acids in the form of flax. There's coconut. There's a bunch of things that are really good for the body, unless you're inflammatory to any of those things or allergic, so don't eat it. But it is a really good either post-workout, pre-workout, or if you're just in between meals and you need something. It has some good fats, it has a lot of protein, and it has very little sugar. The entire recipe has 2.5 tablespoons of maple syrup. That's it. So that's nominal sugars in your body. These are fat bombs. It's coconut oil. There's macadamia nuts in them. And I just put a little blueberry on top for aesthetics. But again, it's just good source of fat. And again, that has 2 tablespoons of maple syrup in the entire recipe. So again, very nominal amounts of sugar. This is one of my favorite protein powders. One scoop renders 18 grams of protein, but it's collagen based. If you're a vegetarian, this is not for you, but it is a really amazing. Collagen is so good for ligaments, joints, anti-aging. The health benefits of collagen from a cellular level is phenomenal. And there's 20 grams of collagen in each.
What's it called?
Vital proteins. One last thing that I like to recommend is magnesium. 80% of the population, they estimate, is deficient in magnesium. And magnesium is the catalyst for over 300 enzymatic processes in the body. And so if you're magnesium deficient, you're not functioning as optimally as you could. So it's not just the calcium is for, magnesium is for relaxation, calcium is for contraction. So it does help the body relax. It helps with sugar dysregulation, so if you fall into that pre-diabetic, this could potentially help. The health benefits are phenomenal. So I wanted to bring this as an example as well. So with that being said, thank you for listening.
Presentation done. Thank you, Tracy, and thank you for all of you guys for coming. So I guess she covered a ton of stuff already, so I'll try to just not repeat her too much here. But what we're going to do is I'm going to dive a little bit further in detail in terms of actual percentages. Tracy already touched on the macronutrient distribution that you need to have throughout the course of your day in terms of having a well-balanced diet, a moderately controlled diet. So I'm going to look at more of the actual numbers side of things. For any of you who've done the Body Comp Challenge, you have sat down with me and you've heard a very long spiel or shtick on percentages of macronutrients. So these are going to be general guidelines for the population, and this is coming from the American College of Sports Medicine as well as other health fitness industries throughout the world, actually. So carbohydrates, 45 to 65% of your daily caloric intake should come from carbohydrates. And as Tracy alluded to, you do want to think complex versus simple more often than not. Carbohydrates are going to be your body's preferred source of energy. When you've consumed enough calories from carbohydrates, your body is then able to allocate the other nutrients that you intake where they are better suited. Your body's going to need calories regardless. So if you're not eating enough carbohydrates to sustain energy levels, etc., your body's going to pull from somewhere because it has to. So if you have enough calories via carbohydrates, then it can allocate other nutrients accordingly. 20 to 35% of your daily caloric intake should come from fat. And again, as Tracy alluded to once again, you want to more often than not think unsaturated versus saturated. Now there are some exceptions to this, such as the coconut oils and things of that nature that are going to have positive benefits for the body. But you mainly want to be staying away from trans fats. Those are going to be fats that are going to negatively affect and impact your cholesterol. Unsaturated fats, poly and mono unsaturated fats, omega-3 fatty acids, as Tracy alluded to as well, MCT oil or medium chain triglycerides are going to be fats that are going to not only help, because fats are going to help insulate the body, they're going to help protect your organs. Likewise, they're going to help with good fat lower your bad cholesterol or low density lipoprotein, as well as improve your good cholesterol or your high density lipoprotein. So fats are going to be very important, as Tracy alluded to, minus obviously or against the bad rap that they have received. Protein. Protein is going to be a very important staple relative to sustaining as well as developing and stimulating new lean muscle tissue growth in the body. Approximately 10 to 35% of your daily caloric intake should be from protein. Now, obviously, if you add up the latter end of all of those percentages, they don't equal 100. They're actually far beyond that. So there's two questions that you have to ask yourself when you are distributing your percentages. One is going to be potentially pre-existing conditions. If you have kidney issues, something along those lines, you might need to have a low protein diet. So you might need to be on the lower end of that spectrum. That's just an example of a pre-existing condition. Likewise, objective is another part that you need to take into consideration when you're, again, distributing those calories. What is your objective for your health and your fitness? Do you want to stimulate or grow a little bit more in terms of a muscle mass or lean muscle tissue standpoint? You might need to be on the higher end of the protein. The list can go on and on. So basically, again, I keep saying again, as Tracy alluded to, we're all individuals. We are all unique in our needs, in our wants, in our desires. So to Nora Mar's point of wanting one thing versus Elizabeth wanting another versus Robin, maybe wanting a little bit of what both of them have. Sorry, Robin. We're all going to then distribute those calories accordingly based on our own individual needs, right? The most important thing is that you are having a well-balanced diet. That's going to be the most important thing. Too much of one thing is obviously a bad situation. Likewise, from a weight loss perspective, this is strictly weight loss we're talking about, not internal health. A caloric deficit is going to be what is going to help fat or weight loss. That is, calories expended versus calories consumed. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to drastically cut your calories because, again, as Tracy said, sustainability. Honestly, sustainability is correct. That you want to have health fitness is a lifestyle change. It's not a fad or a trend thing that you want to do for the summer because you want to look good when you're swimming. It's something that you want to have for the long term so that you can be happy throughout the aging process, because it's going to come after all of us, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
Lies, all lies.
So you do want to make sure you're having a balanced diet as well as developing that caloric deficit. A lot of those determining factors for caloric deficit is going to be based on activity level. It's going to be based on some of your internal factors, such as your basal or resting metabolic rate, how many calories your body needs in order to function properly. Everybody has one, and it's unique to literally every single person in this room in terms of how many calories your body needs to live and to thrive. Based off of that number, you are then able to more educatedly determine how many calories you need to not only sustain functioning, as well as activity level, hopefully then developing that caloric deficit for weight loss. All right? Now, I know a lot of you have questions and concerns about protein, with this being a fitness facility, and that is what Tyler's actually going to touch on now, is going to be the intake of protein and its effects and benefits towards your workouts.
That's awesome. So, there are many diets we've heard of and even tried. Are there any diets that you can think of off the top of your head right now?
Atkins.
Atkins?
Keto.
Keto?
Whole30.
Paleo.
Paleo? Okay.
Grapefruit.
Grapefruit. Just grapefruit. That's all. The only thing you can eat.
Long time ago.
The chocolate diet, obviously.
Chocolate diet.
Yeah.
So the one Twinkie diet.
Saying something.
Do not try those. Those right there. It's a bad idea. Okay, so in which ones are, in your opinion, are the best ones to implement off the top of your head, if any at all?
Paleo.
Paleo?
Mediterranean is good.
Okay. All right. Well, the answer is none of them are right. None of them are wrong. They all work because they're essentially cutting calories out of your diet, and that is the key. And that's what Hans and Tracy both just touched on. So I'm going to go in a little bit more too. The key is to provide your body with a caloric deficit. This means that there are more calories being expended than there are calories being consumed, as Hans already touched on. This will ultimately lead to fat loss, and combined with a proficient resistance exercise program, you will begin to get the results you want. More lean tissue or muscle mass and less body fat percentage. This in turn will provide you the strength you need to perform those daily activities that we all love and want to do for as long as we can, possible. This leads me to my next topic, the post-recovery workout snack or meal. Some of you may have heard us speak about this a few times.
Every time.
Yeah, so during our intense bouts of exercise, we are taxing our muscles tremendously. This means we are depleting what is known as our glycogen stores from within our muscles, which is essentially sugar. We use this sugar called glucose to perform movement of our skeletal muscle. It is very crucial that we replenish these glycogen stores and provide our body with some form of protein as soon as possible for optimal recovery. Research shows 20 to 30 grams of protein within 20 to 30 minutes of exercise is the best way to get optimal recovery.
20 to 30 grams.
20 to 30 grams of protein within 20 to 30 minutes, yes. This will help with protein synthesis or building muscle after workouts. Now this may be before, during, or after exercise. So some of you find it hard to eat during exercise, as you can't really sit there with a dinner plate doing bicep curls. So protein shake works though. So also another 20 to 30 grams of carbohydrates will help replenish the glucose utilized during the workout session. There's research that says for the next 72 hours after an intense resistance training workout that your metabolism experiences a boost and therefore needs more calories to be consumed to provide yourself with the proper nutrition. This is why some people feel more hungry after working out as well. But remember to keep that caloric deficit in mind when you're considering eating that 32-ounce steak with mashed potatoes and green beans. All right. Hans is going to recap a little bit on what we discussed, and then we'll jump into some questions after that.
So to kind of touch on everything that's kind of flown at all of you over the last hour or so, so the main takeaways from today are going to be find balance in your diet, well-rounded. Developing a caloric deficit is going to be imperative for weight loss. Making sure that you're consuming enough protein to maintain and or stimulate muscle growth. And this is going to be relative to your strength training exercises / workouts. Okay? Any questions? Now we're here at the question-taking segment.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
Because apparently I didn't feel like I talked enough today. Like I said, I could talk about this all day. The one thing that I think is really critical to keep in mind when you're talking about weight loss too, and I just want to add this as a caveat, is if you do have a lot of inflammation going on in your body, then it will be harder for your body to release weight. So addressing some of those inflammatory responses and identifying what those are, if you're intolerant to a certain food, so again, getting back to the mindfulness, if you're intolerant to a food, your body's going to let you know. You're going to get a headache, you're going to have gas, you're going to have bloating, you're going to have some type of physiological response to that food. Maybe you don't evacuate your bowels the way you should, or it doesn't look the way it should. It's not formed the way it should be. So it's always, our bodies are always telling us something. So I think having that in mind is really critical as you're moving forward in this, especially if weight loss is your ultimate goal, is how do you identify that piece of it and kind of getting back to making sure you're digesting, you're assimilating, and you're eating kind of a nutrient-dense whole foods diet. So I just wanted to add that piece of it too.
So I have trouble with recovery after workouts. You know, Mondays I work out here with Diana, and Wednesdays and an occasional Friday, but not really Friday. And you know, the gluteator and the inner outer hip. So my hips are constantly sore, and my legs are constantly heavy, and you know, they hurt. And I need the time between Wednesday and Monday, hoping that by Saturday, Sunday, you know, my lower extremities are starting to feel somewhat normal again. Is it the post-workout Mondays and Wednesday consumption of a quality protein, or you know, what is it that's not letting me recover for that?
So there's a couple points, I guess, to touch on with that. The post-workout snack, I'll put it in quotation since you can do it 30 minutes before, during, or 30 minutes after, is going to be important, as Tyler said, for two reasons. A, to maximize the rebuilding of lean muscle tissue fibers, which you essentially put microtrauma tears in. That's what soreness is in the body. So it's going to help repair those tears and build new muscle tissue on top of it. Mm-hmm. It's also going to hasten that recovery process, so you won't be as beat up as long. Also, outside of your post-workout snack, making sure that you're eating enough during the day in terms of making sure you have enough nutrition, that's also going to hasten that recovery process. A really big factor in recovery is going to be the title itself, recovering and resting. Rest is going to be also very crucial to the recovery process. Making sure you're getting enough rest, making sure you're not being too physically active. Obviously, you know, golf and things like that are going to happen, and that's fine. But in terms of making sure that you're not too physically active outside of your workouts, so that you're allowing yourself time to recover.
Do you supplement with magnesium currently?
I don't use magnesium.
So magnesium also helps with the repair of muscles too.
Does it? Uh-huh.
So yeah, so it helps with soreness. It helps kind of with that the relaxation.
Uh-huh.
But I'm wondering if that could be advantageous for you to try it and see if that helps expedite that process a little bit too.
What I do is I go back to my office, and within that half an hour, you know, I take a scoop. I use the Vega, and it's a plant-based protein that, you know, I think I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And then, you know,
You might want to try the collagen. I mean, it's
Uh-huh.
just an option. I mean,
Do you have any carbohydrates with that?
yeah.
not till lunchtime.
Yeah, and that's probably why.
Yeah.
So you need to put something with it.
Right.
You have to, because a lot of those just are really high protein, and the carbohydrate is 4.
Right.
And you need that higher amount of carbohydrates to help you recover. Otherwise, then your muscles are releasing the energy, and they're sitting there waiting for you to give it back, and you don't. and then they start sticking to each other because they're trying to find where to find it. You're just making it harder on your body.
Does a Snickers bar count?
Wrong answer. We talked about it.
So adding a carbohydrate to any of your proteins, you have to look at those labels. A lot of them, like I said, and I think the Vega is one of them. I have another one that I use that only has like 4 or 5 carbohydrates, and I make sure I eat it with an apple or something like that that's going to give me the carbohydrates that are going to help me recover. Otherwise, yeah, you're doing great with the protein, but then you're not putting them all together. And the same thing with adding a fat to that as well.
And water, nobody said water.
And lots of water and sleep.
How much magnesium do you recommend?
So it really depends on the individual. You need to be careful with magnesium, and I always start, especially with this one, I like to recommend this one at night. It's a powder. I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't taste amazing, but if you actually take it with a little bit of dark cherry juice, so dark cherries have melatonin in them, so it kind of has that natural occurring, it'll help you kind of relax and definitely helps it taste better. But this one is a teaspoon, maybe you need more, maybe you need less, but it does have a diuretic effect. So if you take any medications that cause constipation, this can also help combat that as well. If you find you have diarrhea in the morning, then tailor it back a little bit, bring it back a little bit, but it's finding that sweet spot that kind of works well for you. So, but yeah, I just brought this as an example, but I've had a lot of clients who've had a lot of success on that one too, so.
For any of you that were here for, I believe it was Women's Day last year in September, we had samples of tart cherry juice. It also helps with soreness,
Yep.
but it's a good thing that you can cut some of these that don't taste so good. There's also one called Calm.
Yes, they're kind of in the same family. I mean, they're pretty.
Yeah, they're pretty good. I have not heard of this one. I use the Calm, and they come in different flavors, and I get the cherry. And yeah, if you take too much of it, you'll know.
You will definitely
You just
know.
gotta back it off a little bit.
Yeah.
One thing I want to add to that, I experiment with food all the time because I have really severe food allergies. So I'm always trying to find new foods. I went on a week long, all I ate was kale salads with chicken or salmon patties. I've never felt worse in a long time. I'm not kidding. I felt horrible. I had all the things she talked about. I had bloating, I had gas, I felt lethargic, I had a headache, and I was eating lots of them. I mean, I make like a giant kale salad and ate it, but it's not enough carbohydrates for me. I run on high energy, and I have to supplement that. I have to add more to that. So my meals now look like a small salad, a pile of vegetables, or a sweet potato, meat, and a little bit of rice, or a piece of bread, or something. And that's how I eat all my meals.
Yeah.
And I feel.
Energy?
Yeah, weird. I'm always zooming around. But I need that, and as soon as I started doing that, my energy level went up, the bloating went away. Not to get too graphic, but everything stopped when I was just eating the salads, everything. And it's just a really awful feeling. So don't get sucked into, no carbs whatsoever and go into this really low calorie vegetable of just nothingness. It does not do what you think it's going to do for you.
Because I've received a question from somebody, I mean, quinoa alone, I think a half a cup of quinoa renders like 9 grams of protein. So quinoa is really amazing. Amaranth, there's some phenomenal non-grains. Like if you don't want to eat rice or a lot of rice, there's a lot of options out there that are going to give you more return from a nutrient perspective. But you want to make sure that you've got those right proportions of macronutrient ratios. That's going to be what makes the difference between feeling amazing and not really feeling awesome. So,
And putting them all together. So I had a pile of vegetables, a salmon patty, a bowl of oatmeal, and half an apple for lunch. I had all that. Yeah. And I'd feel great. I could probably eat some more. I probably will.
Yep.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no,
Can you
I
pass
would.
these around?
Yeah,
Well,
please do.
how do you incorporate the fat bombs?
So for me, the fat bombs are they're literally like if you need an afternoon snack. If
Oh,
you're
okay.
kind of, you didn't have enough lunch, or you're starting to feel like you're kind of bonking, or you're getting ready to go out for a run and you don't want to digest a big meal, you pop 1 or 2 of those, and man, it's amazing. It is amazing the return that it can give to you. So those are my bites. Unfortunately, the weather turned them into crumbles. So, but they really taste amazing.
Tracy, did you put recipes on?
I did. Yep, I didn't do the fat bombs. I can send them if people want them. I have my energy bites, though. I forgot to do the fat bombs. Yeah.
Karen, what's your take on gluten and its effects on absorbing nutrition? Not thinking of celiac.
Right.
That's
So-
extreme, but I mean just for the regular
Right.
person.
So here's the thing is, even if you do not have a pathological disease, pathology would mean you have celiac disease. So someone who does not have celiac does not mean they are not intolerant to gluten. You can have both. You cannot have celiac disease, but you may not be able to properly digest gluten. The way we process food in the United States makes it really difficult sometimes for us to process our food, and wheats and flours and a lot of those in that family, it makes it really hard. So I personally do not eat gluten. It doesn't make me feel good. I do not have celiac. I do not have a pathological reason to not eat gluten, but I do not feel good. I get gutty, I get a headache, I feel lethargic, I get bloated. And so for me, I can't break it down. I don't do well on it. And so it really depends, again, on the individual. But this is where we get tied to things because our blood work doesn't show a response. But don't confuse a lack of pathology with a lack of dysfunction. Those are two very, very different things. You can have something that doesn't show up on a blood chem panel, but yet you are still bottoming out. You're on the floor. You don't have good energy. You don't feel good. You have headaches all the time. And your doctor says, but your blood work looks great. I don't know what's wrong. Well, that's where, we come in, like looking at what you're eating. What can we do? How can we refine it? If you remove this food, do you start to feel better? The thing about gluten is if you choose to remove it and you want to see if you feel better off of it, it takes about 30 days to get it out of your system. So it really gets in there. So again, if you go off of it, give it at least more than 30 days to really determine whether you start to feel better off of it, okay? The other thing we didn't talk about today is stress. What stress does to our bodies. So it's really hard to achieve good health when we're under a tremendous amount of stress. So when we have to distinguish between the two types of stress, there's our external stress, which would be work, family, home, emotional, anything that's going on in our external environment, and then we have our internal stress. And those are the things that I talked about earlier. Inflammatory foods, things our body's not responding to, poor digestion, sugar. Those things create an inflammatory response in the body, so then you have this kind of twofold effect, which is negatively impacting health. So the more mindful you are, the more aware you become of what you're putting in your body, the better your choices become. And then if you're able to meditate, do yoga, create mindfulness, figure out ways to effectively golf, figure out ways to, or maybe that creates more stress for some, I'm not sure. Depends on the day, I would assume. So I think that, being aware and creating those things and having kind of that twofold approach is tremendously advantageous from a long-term perspective and short-term, because you can feel immediate results. If you start removing foods that you didn't realize you were intolerant of and you start to feel better, don't eat them. Like, it's amazing. Like, you'll just feel better energetically. You don't feel as bogged down. Has anyone ever heard of the book, The Second Brain? So the second brain, so the vagal nerve ties the brain to the gut. So you get super stressed out, you feel it where? In your gut. You get nervous, you get antsy on your wedding day, you're like, oh, I feel jittery, or whatever. But what we don't talk about is the communication from our gut to our brain. So if we're eating foods that we're having an inflammatory response or that aren't agreeing with us, it can create brain fog, it can create anxiety, it can create depression. There is a direct relationship between the messages going from the gut to the brain. It is a two-way highway. So again, having that mindfulness and that awareness will be critical for your health. So I just wanted to add that. Yes.
So do any of these things that you're talking, some of these products that you're
Yeah.
proposing as
Yeah.
being helpful?
Yeah.
I take 3 different blood pressure medications.
You do, okay.
Yeah, so should I talk to my doctor first about?
I always recommend,
Yeah.
so contraindications are not my wheelhouse. I mean, I'm aware of certain ones, but anytime I make recommendations to someone who's on pharmaceutical intervention, based on experience, there's really, what?
Pharmaceutical.
That was a good
Well,
comment.
but it-
I'm a very politically correct person, so, yeah. So, but it's true.
It's a good description.
It is,
Yeah.
it is a good description. You know, I always make the recommendation that you have a conversation with your physician. Now, magnesium, from what I understand, there's no contraindications from magnesium to any blood pressure medications, except the fact that magnesium actually helps blood pressure. So if you start taking blood pressure and you start dipping too low, then you definitely need to have conversations with your
Right.
doctor saying, I'm now doing all of these things. We need to better monitor to determine whether I need to be on all these medications. Okay?
Any other questions?
Did, I might have missed it, about how much, I know it depends on the person.
Yeah.
But what would be a comfortable range of the amount of magnesium a day?
Women are
that
like
you should
340.
intake? 340
I think
milligrams?
300, I think that's right.
Around there?
I think that's right, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so this is,
Thank you.
this renders, take my glasses off. Yep, this is, so 1 teaspoon is 350 in this.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so that would be around right. You want to stay on a whole foods and you don't want to have a lot of other stuff. So this is where you need to be really careful from a supplementation perspective, is you want to make sure that you're not buying Costco grade. I love Costco, it's one of my favorite places on the planet, that and Target, but it's not where you want to be getting your supplements. You want to be making sure that you're buying organic, whole foods based products. When they are cheaper, they're full of fillers. So this really does kind of need to be where the investment comes in, is if you are going to supplement with something, you want to buy a high grade, because if it's full of fillers, your body's not going to break it down and assimilate it, okay? So you want to be getting the whole foods. Methylation is also a part. Methylation is our body's inability to break stuff down. And so if it's in a really manufactured form, you're not really going to get the health benefit from it. So again, you want to get it in its whole-based form. So
And would you consider GNC?
I'm more of a Thorne. I like Thorne. I like Integrative Therapeutics. I do like Biotics. I think they have a good quality control. I don't know. I'd have to look at that. I've not done a tremendous amount of research, so I don't necessarily feel comfortable speaking to that because I don't know the ingredients and how they source it and everything. So, do you recommend that here?
No,
Oh, okay.
no, they have a lot of fillers in their stuff.
That's what I thought. That's
Yeah.
what I thought. They were more manufactured. So again, going to Pharmaca New Seasons, those are kind of my go-tos. The other thing is probiotics. How many of you take a probiotic in here? Okay, so the fact that we talked about 70 to 80% of the body, the immune system resides in the gut. Having a good ratio of good to bad bacteria in the gut is going to be critical. Having a good microbiome is critical to overall health. So I always recommend to my clients that if they're not currently taking one, that they take one. It helps with digestion and the health benefits, but the immune benefits are what's the most critical. So you can get, I have good ones that I like, but you can even go and get Garden of Life, Whole Food, just buy one a day. Take it at night. I always recommend people take it at night. The body's really busy while we're sleeping. It does the majority of its detoxifying while we're sleeping. That's also one of the reasons they don't recommend eating a lot before you go to bed, because then if your body's focused on digesting, it's not going to focus on eliminating. So then if you have toxins sitting in your bowels ready for elimination and you're not eliminating, they can actually be reabsorbed back into the body. So you want to make sure that you're eliminating every day, and you want to make sure that you are creating a really good, healthy microbiome to support immune function. But also, they do have health benefits from a mental health perspective too. So again, going back to that gut-brain connection. So, what else?
Norimar, did you get your
I
question?
think so.
Okay.
I have a
question about soy protein. What's your take? There's a lot of contradicting information about.
Well, there's a
soy
lot of
protein.
contradicting information, period,
Okay.
out there on absolutely every topic. And I think that's what makes this so difficult, is because there's just so much information and we're so inundated with information at all times. Soy products are something that I don't normally recommend. If you do consume soy products, always get the non-GMO organic form. Soy products are cheap and they're easy to modify, but too much soy can actually be estrogenic in the body, and so you don't want to be adding additional unnecessary estrogen into the body. So I do typically recommend minimize your exposure to soy as much as possible, and when you do consume it, non-GMO. That means it's not genetically modified in any way. Now, that is not to confuse with soy beans, soy sauce. Soy sauce is a fermented form, which is totally different than an actual, like tofu and that type of soy.
I just want to say one thing about coconut oil. Make sure that you get the unrefined.
Yep.
Unrefined. The other one has a ton of chemicals to refine it, and it adds
Organic, unrefined.
a lot
Yep.
of poisons in there. So you want to make sure that you get the unrefined. It should smell like coconuts. The refined does not smell like coconuts. So yeah, just make sure. Anything else?
Well, thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all for coming. That was awesome. I hope you learned something.